If you want to see your name at the beginning of all of our videos, as well as see exclusive content here on the homestead, please feel free to join our Patreon. Memberships start off at just $1 a month. And as always, thank you for your support. The short answer to this is no. I would not sell an animal with disabilities or health conditions to anyone. I don't find that to be ethical. If a rabbit doesn't have a leg or is missing something serious, it's an automatic cull. Now, if I have a baby whose mom got a little overzealous and chewed the baby's tail off, and I really liked the animal's type, and it heals correctly and everything is good, I'd be willing to keep it for myself as brood stock. But it would never leave this farm. I had somebody recently who got really upset with me by the fact that I show my butchers and my culls alongside of my show animals. And the reason why I do this is to kind of give somebody an idea who's just getting into rabbit breeding what to kind of look for body conformation wise. What do pinched hindquarters look like compared to correct hindquarters? What does a hollow versus a full loin look like? I am going to be fully transparent in the idea of even if you breed together two grand champion rabbits, not all of those babies are going to be keepers. In fact, you can get an entire litter of culls. If I just showed Strawberry all the time, or Lulu and Blueberry, but I didn't show you this little broken castor baby, who needs a name? I need to name this one. Then I would see it as a disservice. Because you're not always going to have show quality stock. Sometimes you're going to use brood stock to improve something in your lines. This little baby's not going to be in my breeding program for very long, but she has a really nice high point that I want to perpetuate in my lines. I have a nice height to depth ratio, but I would just like a little bit more on that high point, and it's something I want to focus on in this new year. But in order to do that, I'm taking an animal that's not quite to show quality standards like her neighbor here, and I'm going to breed her to my show stock to see if I can improve that point in my lines. Your stock is never going to be perfect. It can be pretty damn well close, but there's always something you can improve. Non-showable stock is just a part of the game, and I'd feel like I'd be lying to you to say that it isn't. So in my Rabbit Barn series, you're going to be seeing my culls as well as my show rabbits. This is Wiley. He is our intermediate silver fox buck. And this year at show, he has won us 3 best of breeds and 1 best opposite. And he has been doing absolutely fantastic recently, learning about his table manners. It may not seem like it here, but Wiley used to be just the worst at table manners. But I absolutely love this buck, and I can't wait to add his genetics to our program. He has some really amazing type when it comes to a commercial rabbit, and it's a point that has been brought up by the judges a lot of how well he is shaped and the massive amount of meat that he has. He is just thick. The one thing we are trying to improve with this boy, though, is his coat. It should be a lot longer and a lot more plush, and should stand up on its own. It is none of these things, but that is okay because Wiley's girlfriend, who I will be showing you tomorrow, does have those attributes. And we will start breeding them in about 2 months. There could be quite a few reasons as to why your rabbits may not be breeding. We are getting to that time of year where they're getting less sunlight, and some rabbits do stop breeding during the winter. And what you can do is you can kind of put lights on them, artificial lights in the barn or your hutch area, to kind of give them that artificial 12 to 16 hours of light that you would see in the summer. There are rabbits where this is not a problem at all, though. It could also be that your rabbits aren't the appropriate age, and that they are too young and too old. When we have a guesstimated age for first breeding, it's just kind of a guess and an idea. It doesn't mean that they're actually ready. So for instance, for our commercial 10-pound rabbits, we normally recommend breeding them around 6 to 8 months of age for the first time and at least 80% of their adult body weight. Some rabbits take a little longer to mature than that. Now, if you have an older rabbit, it could be the opposite problem, especially if you have gotten a rabbit off of a commercial setting where they are being bred on a very heavy breeding schedule, and that could be a problem. Another issue is they can be over or under condition. So we want to make sure that not only are they in the correct weight category, but they have the correct amount of weight for their body frame. Remember, breed SOP, when it comes to weight, can be kind of played with on the high or low end to make sure that your rabbits are filled out appropriately. If everything else kind of fits the bill and they're still not breeding, you can try taking your doe for a car ride. That is my absolute tip and trick when it comes to getting a doe to appropriately breed. You can try switching the animals' cages overnight, meaning you would put the doe in the buck's cage and the buck in the doe's cage so that they can smell all of those delicious pheromones and kind of get more in the mood. Or just like we were talking on our live earlier, you can try a vibrator. No, I'm not kidding. That's what they use in a commercial setting. I still laugh over that study I read. It makes me giggle. I'm sorry. It's just funny. And then also, I've had does where they will absolutely refuse my favorite buck to breed them, but they will easily lift for another buck, so sometimes the does have preferences. And you can always try stand breeding if the buck is willing and the doe is not so much. And for my friends that watch me and breed their own rabbits, what are some tips and tricks that you have, especially in the winter, to get your rabbits to breed?
In a wee cottage far across the moor, where the peewees, plovers and the cubs cried dearie, lived an old maid for many years. Never a lover come to cry her dearie, lonely lass was Kate Dalrymple, thrifty wine was Kate Dalrymple, no music at all but the clear bunny's wimple could be heard, but in the dwelling place of Kate Dalrymple, we had a smack of the grissom in the grim, from the intentions of our lovers to defend her.
So part 2 of my line breeding and inbreeding series. So it's a common misconception that line breeding and inbreeding will cause deformities. And we're not talking necessarily birth defects that randomly happen to embryos, we're talking about genetic malformalities. In rabbits, that can be things such as split penis and malocclusion. And the common misconception is that inbreeding causes this, when in reality, it's already in your lines. It's why you will hear a lot of breeders cull an entire line when something like that is found, because it was already present. What happens when you line breed is that the more you line breed and the more closely the rabbits are related, the smaller the gene pool gets, meaning there are fewer genes to pick from. So it's more likely these problems that are already present in your line will be brought forward. When you have more genes to pick from, it's just easier to hide things that go wrong. Which is why a lot of breeders use line breeding, because it sets in place certain traits that they want. So for instance, let's say I really want some chinchilla babies. I should, in theory, keep a chinchilla back and breed it back to my buck alpha, which are these kits' dad. And in that next generation, I should cull out any color that isn't chinchilla, and once again, breed those kits back to their dad. The idea is I am setting that color into my lines without any recessive traits. Now, the recessive could be hiding, don't get me wrong, but the idea is you want the genes to breed true. Now, color is just a very easy explanation. You can also do this with certain attributes such as short shoulders or a good hind quarter. You are making your lines more predictable. And when we're also talking about interbreeding and line breeding, it doesn't have to be as close to mother to son or father to daughter. It can be longer down the line. You can breed a great-grandson to a great-grandmother, and otherwise have rabbits in between them that are unrelated. You can breed a nephew to an aunt. You can breed down a line long enough to where nieces and nephews don't even show up on a great-great-great-great-aunt's pedigree. It all has to do with lines of division and how far separated you want to take them. And another thing we look at is coefficients, or how related rabbits are. In most livestock, you want a coefficient of around 50. But with rabbits, you can have a coefficient as high as 80 to 85% without much issue. In a lot of cases, we want to breed the rabbit, not the pedigree. And if you are getting what you want out of a line with good stock, there's no reason to switch it up. Where you want an outcross is where you're getting attributes you don't want. As promised, this is Nina. Nina is a silver fox and soon to be Wiley's girlfriend. So if you look at Nina, she has a really nice commercial body type. She's a little bit long in the shoulder, but she has a really nice hind quarter and loin and is very rounded out in that area. But we brought her into the program to specifically breed with our buck Wiley, and that's mostly because of this very luxurious fur she has. It's very thick and plush and very well silvered. And when comparing the problems that she has to Wiley, they have opposing issues. So in theory, when we breed them together, we should have some kits who have the best of both parents. Either way, this doe is extremely sweet and is very easy to handle. Her father was a chocolate, so hopefully in the future we will be getting those colors in our silver fox lines as well. But I am very pleased with Nina here. From a handleability and a grow out perspective, I would definitely look at Rex. The standard, like, commercial type, not the mini type. Huge difference. Minis make horrible meat rabbits. But Rex are amazing meat rabbits for beginners. They're relatively easy to find because a lot of people breed them, and they are one of the easier to handle rabbits when it comes to meat rabbits. They also have a relatively great grow out rate, and they have beautiful soft fur if you were wanting to do pelts as well. And they come in a lot of different colors. I love these guys. They are great. You hear about Californians a lot. I would advise against Californians. Not saying that they aren't great meat rabbits. They are. They're just very hard to handle. One of the best grow out rates that you can have, because they are just specifically a meat rabbit, they are amazing. They get chunky fast. And they have large litters and decent mothering skills. Sometimes they suck. Would not recommend for beginners though, just from a handleability standpoint. They're a little more moody and a bit more likely to scratch and bite. You can afford and find these guys. These guys are absolutely phenomenal. They are very sweet, easy to handle, large litters, large grow outs, and they come in a few different colors. These are silver foxes. They are probably my favorite meat rabbit ever. This is Zeus. They're a bit harder to find and probably more expensive than just finding some Rex, but I would let anyone as a beginner handle these guys. They are just giant babies. Like I said, this is my number one choice, silver fox. Plus, who doesn't love a little buck that comes to greet you at the door and will give you all of the loves and attentions and the cuddles? And this is one of our juniors, so he is still small yet. And this is Nina. As you can see, she is a great sized rabbit. We had her at about 7 pounds by 4 months. So they have a really fast grow out rate, almost comparable to Californians. Not quite, but almost, just slightly there. So I would definitely trade off a silver fox for a Californian any day. When it comes to compatibility, we're looking more than just at age. Are they compatible size-wise? Are you pairing up an experienced buck with an inexperienced doe? Do they have different problems from each other or something that you want to put into your lines? If I'm looking for compatibility for Wiley, it doesn't necessarily matter body type because he has nearly perfect body type. But what I want to focus on with him for a doe is fur. I want to pair him with a doe that has exquisite fur to improve the lines. Compared to Eduardo, where he has better fur, yes, but he has a weaker conformation when it comes to his body. So I want more of a stout doe with correct form. Eduardo's not bad, he's just a little more dainty. When it comes to Zeus, I'm looking at pairing him with Vanessa for the first time. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with their opposing factors and everything to do with the fact that I know how Vanessa is when it comes to breeding bucks. She's very gentle and she's not gonna scar poor Zeus here. She'll hold still, she'll lift, she'll do what she needs to do to kind of break this little buck in. And then I'll focus more on improving my lines after Zeus learns what he needs to do. When it comes to compatibility, there's just a bunch of questions you want to ask. My next question, though, is why are we waiting until 11 months to breed our doe for the first time? If it's a giant breed, I can somewhat understand, but most animals should be at a senior weight by 9 months and have a brain on them. Now, if you're in a show circuit or you're working towards something, I completely understand. But in personal experience, I find that the 9-month mark is a really great month to start because it does give you some wiggle room if the doe doesn't catch the first time. Again, totally up to you, but you just kind of want to look at all things and kind of decide what's going to be best for your program. You don't really have to soak any kind of meat. With that being said, I highly recommend it. Soaking your meat gets rid of the toughness that we see before the rigor mortis leaves it, and then it also helps to take away some of that gamier flavor if the blood is left in the meat. It's not necessary, it just makes it taste so much nicer. This is Butcher A1 Bravo 4, kind of holding out to butcher her to see if she would gain any more weight because she is kind of a perpetual runt of the litter. Overall, she doesn't have a bad shoulder, which is surprising, but if you look, she's very flat along that high point. She reminds me of a tube sock. Proportionally, she has an okay loin. It could be filled out better, but what I really want you to look at are these heels. She is extremely pinched. And when we did butcher her out and kind of look through her organs, we did notice that she had an endemic case of EC. She had classic signs of scarring on her kidneys and little to no weight gain. None of the other kits had anything like that in this litter, which means she probably had weaker genetics to fight it. So either way, she is a cull, but a super interesting case nonetheless. So I stole some color swatches offline so we can do this as PG-13 as possible. This color pink, they're not really ready yet. They aren't interested. This, they're ready, they're interested, we're good to go. You're probably going to have a very good breeding. This, they are very ready. Let's go now. They're probably going to hump your buck. That is just a generalization, and it's more of a center color than an outer color. I hope that was helpful.